in this part of the world, there are a lot of Filipinos, I know. But the turnout this year has grown significantly, I would say, from the past years. So I'm just so happy to see this environment, and people are excited, and when I'm on court, they're excited to see me. So
the All England club had never seen anything like it. A sea of red, white, and blue flooded center court. Chants of Alex Alex echoed off the hallowed walls. And when the defending Wimbledon champion walked onto the court, she wasn't just facing a 21-year-old from Quezon City, she was facing an entire nation. For 2 weeks, the Filipino diaspora had turned SW19 into a home away from home. Nurses from Birmingham, engineers from Berlin, students from Melbourne, families from Toronto. They came with flags, with banners, with voices that refused to be silenced. They turned outside courts into football stadium-like arenas. They made center court feel like Manila. And when Eala stepped onto the most iconic stage in tennis to face the defending champion, the roar that greeted her was so loud it could have been heard back in the Philippines. It sounds super impactful, Eala said, because it wasn't just a tennis match, it was a movement. A nation of 115 million people, finding its voice on the world's biggest stage. By the time she walked onto center court for her fourth round clash, 1.2 million people had already watched highlights of her victory over Swiatek on Wimbledon's YouTube channel. More than twice as many as watch matches involving Novak Djokovic and Serena Williams. Back home, 8,000 fans packed the PhilSports Arena for a free public watch party. This was the moment the tennis world realized Alex Eala wasn't just a player. She was a phenomenon. And the Filipino fans had taken over Wimbledon. The Wimbledon queue, a hallowed British tradition, had never seen anything like it. By 8:30 in the morning, more than 10,000 people had already lined up. They came from every corner of the globe. Nurses from Birmingham, who had traded their hospital shifts for center court. Engineers from Berlin, who had taken leave from their desks. Students from Melbourne, who had drained their savings accounts. And families from Toronto, who had packed their bags and their flags. The Filipino diaspora had mobilized with a single mission, to watch Alex Eala make history. It was an invasion that the All England club never saw coming. The famous queue was overwhelmed. The online ticketing system crashed multiple times. A Wimbledon official, speaking on condition of anonymity, admitted, "We've never seen anything like this. We've had superstars before, Federer, Nadal, Serena. But this is different. This is a movement, and we weren't prepared for it." The scene outside the grounds was chaotic. Security guards were overwhelmed. Hundreds of fans who had traveled thousands of miles were denied entry, forced to watch on big screens while their hero fought for history just meters away. But those who made it inside transformed the All England club into something it had never been before. A home away from home for a 21-year-old from Quezon City. From the moment Eala stepped onto the court for her first round match, the atmosphere was unlike anything Wimbledon had ever witnessed. Philippine flags dotted the stands. Chants of Alex Alex echoed across the grounds, and when she won her first ever main draw match at Wimbledon, she was left genuinely surprised. "I never would have thought that at Wimbledon I would have a home crowd," she said. Super thankful. The support only grew louder with each round. By the time Eala walked onto center court to face the defending champion, the sea of red, white and blue had become a tidal wave. The roar that greeted her was so loud it could have been heard back in Manila. It was, as one report put it, an arena dotted with Philippine flags and a center court crowd that embraced her from the outset. The invasion had begun, and Wimbledon would never be the same. When Alex Eala walked onto center court to face defending champion Iga Swiatek, she was surrounded by a sea of red, white and blue. Philippine flags dotted the arena, and the crowd embraced her from the very first point. It was a moment that made Wimbledon feel less like London and more like Manila. Eala had spoken throughout the tournament about the significance of representing her country on the biggest stages in the world, and the Filipino community in England had answered her call. Fans came in droves to witness the greatest single slam run ever for Philippine tennis. They packed the stands throughout the Grand Slam, whether she played on center court or the outside courts, providing unwavering support that fueled her memorable campaign. "It sounds super impactful," Eala had said ahead of the Swiatek match. The support wasn't just loud, it was transformative. It turned the most prestigious tournament in tennis into a home court atmosphere for the 21-year-old from Quezon City. Inside center court, the energy was electric. Television cameras caught Hollywood stars Tom Hiddleston and Andrew Garfield applauding Eala's victory from the stands. The 21-year-old phenomenon was speaking both to and for an entire country at that very moment. And the sea of Philippine flags waving from every corner of the stadium was a constant reminder that she was never alone. On the outside courts, the atmosphere was even more raucous. Eala's Pinoy fan club added color as well as a football stadium-like energy to her matches. The chants of Alex, Alex echoed across the All England club, turning the most traditional tournament in tennis into a celebration of Filipino pride. After dismantling Swiatek in the third round, the support only grew louder. Photos of Eala diving for a ball during the match made the rounds online, with edits showing her wearing a cape and Superwoman outfit. The Philippines embassy in Britain tracked her progress and posted congratulatory notes. Every milestone belonged not only to Eala, but to every Filipino who had supported her journey. "We're very proud of where we come from," Eala had said earlier in the tournament. "We have a very strong sense of community. You can see it when someone does well. We're a community that uplifts each other. We're quite positive people, and when positive things happen to other Filipinos around the world, I think we just kind of share the enjoyment and share the happiness." The sea of red, white and blue wasn't just a symbol of support. It was a testament to the power of a nation united behind one of its own. Wimbledon had become Manila, and the tennis world would never forget it. Ahead of her blockbuster showdown with defending champion Iga Swiatek, Alex Eala sat before the media and tried to put into words what the Filipino fans meant to her. The question hung in the air. Did she feel like she was playing for something more than herself? Her answer was immediate, heartfelt, and revealing. "It sounds super impactful," she said, her voice carrying a weight that belied her 21 years. The words were simple, but they captured something profound. This wasn't just about tennis. This was about a nation finding its voice through her. The sea of Philippine flags that had flooded center court wasn't just a decoration. It was a statement. The chants of Alex, Alex that echoed across the All England club weren't just noise. They were a lifeline. The fans who had crossed oceans and emptied their savings weren't just spectators. They were family. "To have what I would call a full house of almost Filipinos is amazing," Eala had said after her first-round victory. "I never would have thought that at Wimbledon I would have like a home crowd." But it wasn't just the volume of support that moved her. It was the meaning behind it. The Filipino diaspora had turned the most traditional tournament in tennis into a celebration of national pride. They had filled the seats, waved the flags, and roared her name with a passion that left even the most seasoned observers stunned. Jasmine Paolini, her fourth-round opponent, had seen it firsthand and was left in awe. "She has a huge crowd with her," the Italian said. "It's so good for our sport." Eala's supporters, known as the Eala Army, had added color and a football stadium-like energy to her matches. They had followed her from Melbourne to Dubai to London. They had packed outside courts into standing room-only venues. They had turned center court into a home away from home. "It sounds super impactful," Eala repeated, the words resonating with a truth that transcended the tennis court. Because for the 21-year-old from Quezon City, the roar of the Filipino crowd wasn't just noise. It was the sound of a nation believing in her. It was the echo of every dream she had ever dreamed. And it was the fuel that would carry her through the biggest moments of her life. The sea of red, white and blue was impossible to ignore. But the numbers behind the phenomenon were even more staggering. By the time Alex Eala stepped onto center court for her fourth-round clash against Jasmine Paolini, 1.2 million people had already watched highlights of her victory over Iga Swiatek on Wimbledon's official YouTube channel. More than twice as many as watched matches involving Novak Djokovic and Serena Williams. Her post-match press conference was close behind with nearly 580,000 views. For a player who had never won a main draw match at Wimbledon before this year, the numbers were unprecedented. The Eala effect had been building for months. In Dubai, the Women's Week of the 2026 Duty-Free Tennis Championships saw a 48% year-on-year jump in ticket sales. In Indian Wells, the tournament had set an all-time attendance record of 504,268 fans the previous year, and Eala's presence was expected to push that number even higher. Tournament directors had learned the hard way that when Eala is on the entry list, ticket demand surges and venues become standing room only. The phenomenon was so powerful that it was rewriting the business of women's tennis. Due to overflowing Filipino crowds, Eala's matches were being moved to center court to accommodate spectators and allow for better, noisier television. Because of the massive support she gets, Eala was becoming a favorite WTA wildcard participant. Even in tournaments she didn't qualify for outright. Coco Gauff, when asked who'd sell the most jerseys if tennis had jersey sales, didn't hesitate. Alex Eala. She has a huge fan base, she actually would be number one probably. Eva Jovic agreed instantly. Alex Eala, because so many fans, so many Filipinos show up, I love it. Back home in the Philippines, the numbers were just as staggering. The Philippine Sports Commission and MMDA hosted a free public watch party at the PhilSports Arena in Pasig City, which could accommodate thousands of fans. Restaurants across Manila hosted their own viewing parties. Eala was no longer just a tennis player. She was a phenomenon backed by numbers that left the WTA speechless. It sounds super impactful, she had said, and the numbers proved she was right. The final point had been played. The dream had ended on center court. But what Alex Eala had sparked in the Philippines was only just beginning. By the time she stepped onto center court for her fourth-round clash, 1.2 million people had already watched highlights of her victory over Iga Swiatek on Wimbledon's official YouTube channel, more than twice as many as watched matches involving Novak Djokovic and Serena Williams. Her post-match press conference was close behind, with nearly 580,000 views. For a player who had never won a main draw match at Wimbledon before this year, the numbers were unprecedented. The impact wasn't just digital. Back in Manila, the Philippine Sports Commission and MMDA had organized a free public viewing at the PhilSports Arena, which could accommodate 8,000 fans. The scenes inside were electric. Thousands of Filipinos gathered together, united by a single purpose, to support their hero. It felt less like a watch party, and more like a celebration of national pride. The Eala effect had become a movement that was rewriting the economics of women's tennis. In Dubai, the Women's Week of the 2026 Duty-Free Tennis Championships saw a 48% year-on-year jump in ticket sales. In Indian Wells, fans planned their dinners around her matches. Due to overflowing Filipino crowds, her matches were being moved to center court to accommodate spectators. The message from fans had been consistent. If Alex Eala is on court, that's where they want to be. Coco Gauff, when asked who would sell the most jerseys if tennis had jersey sales, didn't hesitate. Alex Eala. She has a huge fan base, she actually would be number one probably. The governing body of women's tennis had realized what the Philippines had known for years. Alex Eala wasn't just a player. She was a movement. And as Eala walked off center court, through the sea of red, white, and blue that had carried her through every match, she carried with her the knowledge that this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The warrior had spoken, the dreamer had arrived, and the legacy of Alex Eala was only just beginning. The All England club had never seen anything like it. A sea of red, white, and blue flooded center court. Chants of Alex Alex echoed off the hallowed walls. And when the defending Wimbledon champion walked onto the court, she wasn't just facing a 21-year-old from Quezon City. She was facing an entire nation. For 2 weeks, the Filipino diaspora had turned SW19 into a home away from home. Nurses from Birmingham, engineers from Berlin, students from Melbourne, families from Toronto. They came with flags, with banners, with voices that refused to be silenced. They turned outside courts into football stadium-like arenas. They made center court feel like Manila. The numbers were staggering. By the time Eala stepped onto center court for her fourth-round clash, 1.2 million people had already watched highlights of her victory over Iga Swiatek on Wimbledon's official YouTube channel, more than twice as many as watched matches involving Novak Djokovic and Serena Williams. Back home, 8,000 fans packed the PhilSports Arena for a free public watch party. In Dubai, the Women's Week of the 2026 Duty-Free Tennis Championships saw a 48% year-on-year jump in ticket sales. The Eala effect wasn't just about filling seats. It was about rewriting the rules of the sport itself. It was about proving that greatness doesn't have a passport. That talent can emerge from anywhere. That the future of tennis lies not in the traditional powers, but in the untapped markets around the world. It sounds super impactful, Eala had said, and it was. Because the roar of the Filipino crowd wasn't just noise. It was the sound of a nation believing in her. It was the echo of every dream she had ever dreamed. And it was the fuel that would carry her through the biggest moments of her life. Wimbledon had been taken over. The tennis world had been stunned. And Eala had proven that she wasn't just a tennis player, she was a movement. The legacy of this moment would outlast any victory or defeat. Because when Filipinos unite behind one of their own, the world takes notice. And the world had never seen anything quite like this. Was this the greatest show of support in Wimbledon history? Or just the beginning of something even bigger? Talus free.